pain. It's a terrible word. In an instant, pain can stop our regular living, disrupt our normal routines. While we suffer pain, our hopes and our dreams are put on hold until the pain stops or is brought under control. One of the greatest human fears is that of becoming very sick, to the point that pain takes over our whole lives. Another fear we humans have is that we might witness another's pain. We cringe when the news reports replay the cries of other people, especially children. You know, all people who are hurt, big or small, are children. But all we want to do somehow, anyhow, is to make it stop. One way to make it stop is to turn off our cell phones, our radios, our TVs, to ignore Facebook or Twitter or newspapers or magazines, and refuse to discuss painful world events. Most of us have done that at some point. I know I have. In today's message from Luke, a lawyer, a teacher of the Mosaic Law, or the commandments of the Hebrew Scriptures, asked Jesus a simple question. What do I have to do to live forever? It's a simple question with no simple answer. The lawyer and the rabbi both had learned the answer by heart. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. But that wasn't good enough for the lawyer that day. The simple knowledge was paining him in his spirit, his mind, his soul. So he persisted in the conversation. But Rabbi, who is my neighbor? Another simple question. And you answered it well earlier. Most lawyers and most faith leaders or rabbis love discussion. And this young lawyer was no exception. Perhaps he wanted to catch Jesus up on a basic question of faith. Do you remember your catechism, Jesus? Perhaps he was tired of the same old questions with other law leaders and was seeking a fresh take on that old familiar law of faith. So, Rabbi Jesus, got any new ideas to share on this? Perhaps he was bored and wanted to stir up some controversy. Hey, Jesus, you're the new kid on the rabbinic block. Our scriptures are full of rules telling us to care for widows and orphans and strangers. How are you dealing with all those folks hanging around you? Or perhaps, just perhaps, our lawyer had a persistent pain nagging his heart. Can you help me, Jesus? What can I do to help the helpless? I feel powerless to change their situation. My heart aches with care and frustration. What can I do to ease my own pain so that I can ease theirs? Can you provide any solution to the injustice of life? Jesus, sensing the lawyer's underlying desire to learn more, particularly about his faith, told a story about someone, anyone, everyone, even those Samaritans who can provide health and care for others. Others. Someone, anyone, everyone else. The story is addressed really not just to one person, but to everyone. Priests and holy people, Levites and lawmakers, innkeepers and business folk, travelers and vacationers, you know, us. It's about God's universal health care plan. Another simple question and answer were exchanged. Who was the neighbor in the story? Jesus asked. The one who showed mercy, the lawyer answered. No argument from Jesus on that response. A simple sentence followed, only 4 words, words to live by. This rabbi taught his newest pupil, go and do likewise. Have you heard of Tommy Douglas? Tommy Douglas was a Canadian leader who spent 44 years in Canadian federal and provincial politics. Before becoming a politician, he was a Baptist minister, a man of faith. He's the father of actor Shirley Douglas and the grandfather of actor Kiefer Sutherland. But perhaps Tommy Douglas is most famous because in 2004, a competition run by CBC, he was voted the greatest Canadian. Number 1. Why? Because Tommy Douglas was the force behind universal health care in Canada. Being a person of faith, undoubtedly Mr. Douglas was very familiar with his Bible and the parables that Jesus told to his followers, like the story we heard today. Convincing the rest of the Canadian population of the value of universal health care was not easy for Tommy Douglas and others who supported the idea of a health care plan for the whole country. In recent years, the United States has hotly debated setting up their own particular health care plan, and we have seen again how difficult it has been to sell such an idea around a country. Jesus faced a similar challenge. Of course, his listeners wouldn't appreciate hearing him say, "Go and do likewise." After all, life was just fine without hiking out into dangerous places and looking for injured travelers to help and heal, just to prove that they were living out their faith. In 2010, I participated in a conference called Seeking Right Relations. Our planning group spent a day in Ganawage, a beautiful area near Montreal, Ganasataga, in the area also known as Oka. The meeting was planned with the full knowledge that 20 years ago that week, the pain-filled Oka crisis had happened. We met in a home that 20 years before was surrounded by barbed wire, tanks, and Canadian Army personnel. Arms were drawn. It was very frightening for the United Church family who lived in that house. There was much pain on both sides of the Oka crisis, and some of that pain still lingers. But not all of the Oka crisis memories are painful. Some of the stories are hopeful and healing. Francine Lemay described how her faith and her experience of meeting with some Mohawks from Ganasadaga brought her from the pain of the death of her brother, Corporal Marcel Lemay, during the Oka crisis, into a new freedom, she called it, of reconciliation. People of faith want to actively seek ways toward right relations and open dialogue in safe, supportive ways. Telling our stories, and perhaps more importantly, listening respectfully to others' stories, can bring new right relations with our neighbors. Showing mercy by helping to ease another's pain, their injuries, their hurts, and their heartaches, can begin a healing process and start us on a new way, a new journey towards a new freedom of reconciliation. Who is my neighbor? The one who showed mercy. Go and do likewise. This is God's universal health care plan.